How do you know when you are hungry? Seriously, what symptoms do you feel in your body that tell you you are hungry? Have you ever eaten too much? What symptoms did you feel in your body that told you you ate too much? I ask those questions because in the same way you know the distinct difference between hunger and eating too much, and both of those experiences are associated with food, it is very possible to know which specific emotional reaction you're experiencing when it's time to give a speech. That's part of the reason I created the I Am Speaking strategy. Hi, I'm Dr. Shalonda Jones. The I Am Speaking strategy I created gives entrepreneurs and professionals who have leadership positions specific steps they can take to transform their concerns with public speaking into the confidence to stand before an audience and give a speech successfully. The first step in the strategy is represented by the letter I. The I stands for identify your emotions. In this conversation, you will learn why it is important to identify the specific emotional reaction you are having when it's time to give a speech. You will also learn 4 of the more common disempowering emotions associated with public speaking. Finally, you will learn how to identify the specific emotional reaction you are having when it's time to give a speech. Why are we going through this? Have you ever met somebody who seemed to be in control even in the face of the most challenging circumstance? Well, that person probably has a high level of self-awareness. And that's what we're working towards developing as you are improving your ability to become a confident speaker. We're working to increase your self-awareness. Before we get into the details, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because as you are getting closer to your goal of becoming a confident speaker, there are more videos that will help you to get there. So make sure you subscribe. Let's go ahead and get into our conversation. I am excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you for joining me. Before we get into detail, I have to make a really important point. Our current conversation is not intended for you to diagnose yourself with any type of ongoing emotional concern. As a matter of fact, if you believe that you could benefit from the consistent care from a mental health professional, don't be ashamed to get the help that you need. By all means, get the help that you need. Remember, successful public speakers take care of themselves first. And if you get the help that you need, that's you taking care of you. Take care of yourself. What we are talking about is how to control emotional reactions to short-term situations like giving a speech. I've been waving my water bottle around. This water feels so cool in my hands, and I promise it will be refreshing when I drink it. What specific human need does water help to meet? I'll put this down. Oh, I have my apple also. Look at it, so red and it looks delicious. Oh, it smells good. I promise it will be juicy and sweet when I eat it. What specific human need can this apple help to meet? Of course, I'm going somewhere with those questions. We know that water will help to quench our thirst, and this apple can help to satisfy hunger. In the same way, you know which specific steps to take to address specific physical experiences and needs. It's equally important to know which specific steps to take to address specific emotional experiences. That leads me to my first point, why it is important to identify the specific emotional reaction you are experiencing when it's time to give a speech. Often I hear people say, face your fear, which is great advice, and it sounds easy. And over time, when you continually practice giving speeches, it does become easier. How do you know it's fear that you have to face? What in your body says this is fear? Is fear an emotion or is fear a feeling? What is the difference between emotions and feelings, and why does it matter? Well, we'll talk about the difference between emotions and feelings because that lays the foundation for understanding why it is important to identify the specific emotional reaction you are having to giving a speech. When it comes to understanding the difference between emotions and feelings, specifically when it comes to emotions, I encourage you to remember a 3-letter word. That 3-letter word is C, S-E-E. The reason I encourage you to remember this 3-letter word is because emotions are a series of chemical reactions in the brain, and I won't go into a lot of science stuff, but this is really important for helping us to understand the difference between emotions and feelings. Emotions are a series of chemical reactions in our brains in response to our situation, experiences, and the environment. S-E-E. S is for situations, E is for experiences, E is for environment. The word C, S-E-E, can help us to remember the 3 primary factors that contribute to the kind of emotional responses we have when we are in a situation, when we are having an experience, or when we're in a particular environment. Understand the power of our brains. Our brains are very powerful mechanisms. Value the power of your brain because your brain can help you to accomplish what seems like the most impossible tasks. At the same time, you know how it's important to control the power of electricity for it to be functional? It's equally important for us to control the power of our brains for it to be functional for us. Here's one of the main reasons why. Your brain is going to do what it has to do to keep you safe. It does not have the ability to distinguish between a situation that is actually happening or one that you hope to avoid. What do I mean? Let's take public speaking, for example. When we have concerns about what if I make a mistake? What if somebody in the audience laughs at me? What if I forget to say something important that I intended to say? Our brain is interpreting those thoughts about a situation as a type of discomfort. And it's going to go to work to create the emotional response to that discomfort that we hope to avoid. But for your brain, it doesn't know that this situation is not currently happening. For your brain, discomfort is discomfort. It doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable now. You hope that it will not be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if the discomfort is something in your physical body or some type of social discomfort. For your brain, discomfort is discomfort. So what does that have to do with the importance of identifying a specific emotional reaction you are having when it's time to give a speech? Because of the fact that you are still in a situation where you are preparing for the speech, you have time to control that emotional reaction. So how do you know which specific emotional reaction you are having when it is time to give a speech? That's a great question. And for us as public speakers who are confident and successful, we know to distinguish between emotions and feelings. There are many people who argue emotions and feelings are one and the same, and that's fine. But for us, emotions, we talked about, are the chemical reaction to a situation, experience, or an environment. Feelings are the symptoms that we feel in our body associated with a particular emotional reaction. Those symptoms in our body that we feel, that's what we are calling feelings. They will help us to identify that specific emotional reaction to giving a speech. Now let's talk about 4 of the more common emotional reactions associated with public speaking. As we are discussing these 4 common emotional reactions associated with public speaking, remember, we defined emotions as the chemical reaction in our brains that are responses to our situation, experiences, and environment. Keep the word see in mind. See is important because various situations, experiences, and environments can evoke an array of emotional responses. When it comes to public speaking specifically, different types of speeches for different occasions can evoke different emotional reactions. For instance, delivering a toast at your best friend's wedding may evoke a different emotional response from giving a speech that teaches someone else a skill you know. This means there is an array of emotional reactions to public speaking, but in the interest of time, we are discussing only 4 of the more common emotional reactions. Also, we are currently discussing disempowering emotional reactions specifically. I call them disempowering emotional reactions because if we fail to take control of these emotional reactions to public speaking, those emotional reactions will dismantle our courage that gives us the power to pursue new opportunities. What are these 4 disempowering emotional reactions? That's a great question. The 4 disempowering emotional reactions we are talking about are fear, anxiety, panic, and distress. We will discuss each of them in detail to explore the differences in each emotion. Let's start with fear. Fear is an emotional reaction to a situation, experience, or environment that appears to pose a threat to our physical or social safety. There are times when fear can keep us safe from physical danger, such as instances in which there is a potential to be burned by a fire, mauled by a large animal, or attacked by deadly weapons. Those are situations, experiences, or environments that can evoke fear that will cause harm to our physical body. When it comes to our social well-being, fear is often associated with situations, experiences, or environments that can result in isolation from peer groups or inferiority concerns. Before we get into details about anxiety specifically, I want to make you aware that there are various types of anxieties. We are referring to social anxiety specifically. Social anxieties are often reactions associated with previous unpleasant situations, experiences, or environments, and the concern is the unpleasant outcome from previous situations, experiences, and environments will recur in current and future situations, experiences, and environments that are similar to the previous situation, experience, or environment. Social anxieties often present themselves when situations, experience, or environments may threaten our self-image or our reputation. The third disempowering emotion commonly associated with public speaking we are talking about is panic. Panic often occurs in situations, experiences, and environments that appear to be beyond our control. Sometimes we believe we didn't have control to begin with. Now, fear and anxiety are typically associated with previous situations, experiences, and environments where we can kind of gauge what might happen. Panic is different. Panic is an unfamiliar experience, situation, or environment that is difficult to predict the outcome. We don't know what will happen. Therefore, the emotional reaction is to panic. The fourth and final disempowering emotional reaction to public speaking we will talk about is distress. There are different kinds of stress, but distress is a particular disempowering emotional reaction to a situation, experience, and environments that appear to be overwhelming for us. There's so much stimuli in the environment or the situation or the experience that it's a challenge to organize it. Tasks associated with attaining a specific goal appear to be too great to complete. Therefore, the reaction is distress. Those are 4 of the more common disempowering emotions associated with public speaking. Each of those emotional reactions are distinct in the situation, experiences, and environmental factors that can evoke them. That's why it is important to identify the specific emotional reaction we are having when it comes time to give a speech. How can we know which specific disempowering emotional reaction we are having when it's time to speak? That's a great question. Learning to identify the specific emotional reaction we are having requires us to raise our self-awareness. When it comes to raising our self-awareness, to identify the specific emotional reaction we are having when it's time to give a speech, we can raise our self-awareness by completing what I call a personal B.E.T assessment. A personal B.E.T assessment encourages a person to pay attention to their body, the environment, and their thoughts. A good place to start learning about the personal B.E.T assessment is to start with the letter B, which represents body, paying attention to what's happening in our body. Each of the 4 disempowering emotional reactions we just discussed are typically associated with specific feelings in our bodies. And remember, we distinguish between emotions and feelings. For our intents and purposes, the 2 are different. Feelings are the symptoms in our bodies that are associated with emotional reactions. Everybody is different and will have their own personal physical symptoms. That's why it is important for you to be attentive to your body, along with the other 2 factors, which are environment and thoughts, so that you'll know which feelings are associated with specific emotional reactions. The various symptoms and feelings we will talk about next are designed to help to get you started. I will list some physical symptoms that are commonly associated with each disempowering emotion. Rapid heartbeats, sweating, trembling, and difficulty speaking are feelings that are often associated with the emotional reaction of fear. When it comes to public speaking specifically, some other common feelings associated with fear are the inability to speak and blurred vision because your pupils may dilate. Rapid heartbeat can also represent social anxiety. So fear and social anxiety are sometimes represented by the feeling of a rapid heartbeat. But social anxiety also comes with blushing, turning red, feeling flushed and hot. Some people may even experience nausea, feel symptoms of nausea. They may feel nauseated. And some people might even vomit. Some people find it difficult to catch their breath when they're experiencing social anxiety. And then there's some who may even feel lightheaded and dizzy. Keep in mind, as we're talking about these symptoms that are feelings in our bodies, everybody's different. These may not apply to you, but the goal is to learn to raise our self-awareness. So let's move on and talk about what it might feel like when it comes to panic. Panic is often signaled by chest pains, rapid heartbeat, and having a challenge controlling your breathing. And then finally, distress is often associated with discomfort in the stomach, a change in appetite, be it an appetite increase or a loss of appetite. There are also challenges with getting rest properly, which can contribute to fatigue as a feeling associated with distress. The point of paying attention to the feelings in our body is to be able to identify the symptoms that are indicating that we are having a specific emotional reaction. Remember, our goal is to identify the specific emotional reaction we are having to giving a speech. Your symptoms may be different for these different disempowering emotions. Pay attention to the symptoms in your body. Raise your self-awareness. The first step is to pay attention to the body in our personal B.E.T assessment. Let's talk about the second part, paying attention to the environment. So we just indicated that the E in our personal B.E.T assessment represents an assessment of our environment. So in addition to paying attention to the feelings in our bodies, knowing what is happening in our environment can also give cues of the specific emotional reaction we are experiencing. Remember, when it comes to public speaking, environments that may present a concern with our social well-being, like being isolated, can contribute to experiencing fear as an emotional reaction to this type of environment. If the environment presents an opportunity for our image to be compromised, somebody can judge us, there's a possibility for social anxiety to be the emotional reaction in that type of environment. If it seems like there's a loss of control in a particular environment, perhaps the emotional reaction will be panic to that environment. And finally, if there seems to be a lack of organization and things are in a disarray and there is not a clearly defined systematic approach for accomplishing tasks, then perhaps that environment will evoke the emotional reaction distress. So keep in mind, now we've got an assessment of our bodies, what symptoms and feelings are we having in our bodies, and we're paying attention to the cues in our environment. Now we're moving to the final aspect of our personal B.E.T assessment, and that's to pay attention to our thoughts. Our thoughts, the things we think about, are key in helping us to identify the specific emotional reaction we are experiencing when it's time to give a speech. Our thoughts are a type of inner dialogue. They are a way we are communicating with ourselves. And if we have concerns about being the center of attention, being separated from the larger group, which is considered the audience, remember, those kinds of concerns can evoke the emotional reaction of fear, because there's the thought that there's a threat to our social well-being. If there's a concern that we may not make a favorable impression on our audience members, remember, thoughts of judgment, concerns with being judged are associated with the disempowering emotion of social anxiety. If there is a concern that the outcome of the speech is unpredictable and the thoughts are that we don't know what's going to happen, we've lost control of this speech situation, there is the possibility those thoughts will contribute to experiencing panic as an emotional reaction to giving a speech. And finally, if there are concerns that we don't know where to start with the task, we don't know how to start our speech, we don't know how to organize the information in the speech, and the task seems so overwhelming, it seems to be too much, then perhaps those thoughts will contribute to an emotional response of distress. We have to learn to deliberately pay attention to the thoughts we are having. When we combine paying attention to the feelings in our bodies and the elements in our environments with our thoughts, we are completing a personal B.E.T assessment that will contribute to our ability to identify the specific emotional reaction we are having when it's time to give a speech. Ultimately, we are raising our self-awareness so that we can take care of ourselves in order to transform our concerns with public speaking into confidence to stand before an audience and speak successfully. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. Thank you for your time. It was great sharing ideas about personal and professional development, especially as they relate to public speaking. As we're wrapping up, remember we talked about why it is important to identify the specific emotional reaction you are having when it's time to give a speech. We talked about 4 of the more common disempowering emotions associated with public speaking. And we also talked about how you can identify which specific emotional reaction you may be having when it's time to give a speech. Keep in mind, when we fail to control our disempowering emotions, those disempowering emotions will try to control us. With that said, make sure you go back through the video, because every time you hear me say, we are successful and confident speakers, we are successful and confident speakers, I am talking about you and me. You are a successful and confident speaker. The second step in the I am speaking strategy is to affirm your success. Now's a good time to start affirming that you are a successful and confident speaker. With that said, do us both a tremendous favor. Do something today to help make your greatest ambition your greatest accomplishment.